Hello, my name is Kerry Collins. I'm from Providence College. My co-authors are Jennifer Schwal-Rousseau from the Cherry Stone Angel Group and Crystal Zhang from the faculty at Bryant University. Our paper is entitled East Coast versus West Coast, surveying the differences in venture capital financing traits. Our purpose was to explore differences between VC underwriting criteria on the East Coast and the West Coast. And so we surveyed a great many firms, and then we looked at several of the financing traits as well as business traits to see if there were differences on a coast-by-coast basis. We were really more about ranking the traits, but ultimately we went from ranking those traits to looking at them as factor groups. We did find differences exist between these two VC regions in terms of the importance of the traits. Our motivation was pretty simple, and that is venture capital is a integral piece for high growth enterprises, and it's been around since the 60s, quite frankly, but we've seen a lot of it as it relates to IPOs since the 1980s. The second is that almost all VC have heard the line, it's investing in Boston or New York is certainly different than when compared with Silicon Valley. But there aren't a lot of studies that give us tangible proof of a difference in investment philosophy. And so our work is really the first to look at the two coasts and look at the questions between them in terms of their investing traits. We took the Venture Capital Pro database from 2010 and developed a survey instrument, as shown in Table 2. The idea was to reach out to VC firms, both East and West Coast, and then to send out the survey. We sent it to almost 2,000 partners in these VC firms, but we found our response rate was only about 5%. In our survey, we used a Likert type scale, strongly agree versus strongly disagree, and a system called Question Pro covering 27 funding traits, and asked these partners to walk through some questions to help us rank them. We also allowed the partners open-ended questions to share more about what they do, and we found that there was a very high correlation between what the open-ended questions offered and what we found in our multiple choice piece. In the first portion, we used factor analysis in order to determine how these traits would rank on the East Coast versus the West Coast. And what we found were really twofold. First, East and West both rely on the past and present experience of a management team or an entrepreneur. So the idea is the skills count greatly, and any form of success in history also is a very important piece of the process. The other finding is that East Coast venture capitalists rely strongly on financials, while West Coast venture capitalists are more willing to rely on the entrepreneur's idea and form the business and financial models around that idea. So they move up the birth curve. What we think really should happen, though, is in future surveys, you need to better control for the industries in which the VC participate, because there is a real choice variable happening here, and that is that more of the tech work is being done on the West Coast, where it needs a more flexible introduction and a more flexible business model, where we see more happening in New York in terms of financials. In terms of financial and maybe even fintech. So we need some variables that control for those kinds of things. I think the other piece would be to increase the richness of the response rate by getting behind NACVA or ACG or some other organization that could reach venture capitalists and get them to respond more favorably than we were able to do. And that's pretty much the conclusion of our work. We hope you'll look at the full version of our manuscript and offer comments. But we thank you very much.